So we're working on project 5 for typography, and I went to week 4 because it had the links here. Week 5, those got lost, but I've got my text for project 5. It just says grids. And then I also downloaded my images as well. You just right click and save as, and you can download those. So I have my project 5 folder open now, and I'm going to expand my images. They should be in a nice folder. You, of course, have done some additional research. Last week I did a little extra research, so I'm going to grab my mains. So, guess what, guys? Last week's research was a farce. I did a Google research for Maine Psalter, and this came up. This is not from the Maine Psalter. This was some Irish thing. So when I say just because you typed it in Google and just because it comes up under your Google search, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is accurate. So this is not even German. This is Irish. Oops. Can't use it. I learned my lesson. Maybe you'll learn yours too. Do double check on your research. But I do have plenty of things here that are actually the right stuff. So there's a picture of the 42-line Bible. There's a picture of Gutenberg with Fust and Schaffer probably and a couple other assistants while they're printing. There is a picture of the Gutenberg press itself. There's a picture of most handsome Gutenberg. There is a picture of the detail of one of the what are called illustrated initial letters, the B in the Maine Psalter. There's a picture of the page of the Maine Psalter. And then there's a picture of some handsome, muscular stud pulling on a press. That is a Gutenberg press. I just like that picture. I had to get it. And then there's another guy here, which assuming would either be Gutenberg or Fust, and they are melting lead down and pouring little pieces of type. Okay? These are the images that I supply to you. However, you are required to research at least one additional image, and based off of last week's video, make sure you're getting the resolution and the color modes and the file types correctly. You'll notice that these are all TIFFs. That's because these are for printing. I already did all the work on these. Now, I usually will then open up my InDesign document, and gosh, what's the size of this supposed to be? 8 by 8 inch page layout. Okay, so I'm going to create an 8 by 8 inch page layout. So I'm going to go to File and New and go to Document, and we're going to create multiple different grids in the same document because we're going to sketch using multiple different grids, and we're going to talk about the grids. So I'm going to go to New Document. And right now I do want facing pages on this because this is like 2 pages out of a book. Pretend like it's an article. And we only have 2 pages, guys. We're going to design, I don't care how much copy we've got, we still only have 2 pages. This is what we've been told we can do. So if we have an entire book about printing and somebody says you have 2 pages on Gutenberg, that's all you get. So we're going to do 2 pages. And you want to start your numbering at page, oh my, here we go. I started at an even number. The reason why is odds are always on the left and evens are always on the right. And if we're doing a 2-page spread, we need a right-hand page and a left-hand page. And that left-hand page is always an even number. So I'm going to type in a 2 or a 22, or I don't care if it's 2002, something. It could be 24, it could be 16, anything that's an even number. I don't really care what page number. Let's see, what's a good number? 22. I like 22. That was a good year. So something even. Our width is supposed to be 8 IN, so make sure you type that in. That is equivalent to 48 picas. So if it doesn't say 48p, you know you're off quite a bit. So I have 48 pica by 48 pica. We'll start with a 2-column grid, and we'll move from there. And if I wanted to get really, really particular, if I wanted to get super specific, I could study the proportions of a 42-line Bible, and then I would be probably studying the golden ratio or the golden mean, and I would possibly allow for my margins to be different than not linked up. So you guys can have all the same margin, but for me, I'm going to get a little particular. I'm going to put a little extra at the bottom because those proportionally are typical of a book, and on the outside I'm going to give it a bit more. I'm going to give them bottom, let's see, there we go. Now keep in mind that when you tighten up your margins like this, that's less room for body copy, so you may have less white space to deal with in the overall layout. So you have to be careful about how much of this you take away. So, gosh, I'm going to take a little less than this. I'm going to do my outside at 4 and my bottom one at 5. I don't want to get too crazy. You can do it anything you want as long as it makes sense, okay? Doesn't have to be the same as mine. Okay, bleed. What should we set the bleed at, folks? You guys know now. What's a bleed set at? 9 points, which is P9, which is equivalent to 1/8 of an inch. Always set 1/8 of an inch bleed, which is equivalent to P9, 9 points. Not 9P. 9P is 9 picas. That's 1.5 inches. So it's a small 1/8 of an inch. When I like what I've got, I hit OK. And I have 2 pages in spread format, facing pages. It starts on an even number. I should share with you how to change this if you didn't do it when you create a new document. Let's say I needed to change this page number. Instead of 22, I needed it to be page 11. If you wanted to change that, you could right-click on that page after you double-click on it in the Pages panel. And you go to Numbering and Section Options. And if you said, hey, I want this to start at page 11, there's no preview on this, unfortunately. I hit OK. You can now see why we have even numbers. We start a 2-page spread on even numbers. Odds are always on the left, which puts it up here, and evens are on the, odds are always on the right, which puts it up here, and evens are on the left, which puts it down below, okay? So I'm going to right-click back on that page and turn it back to page 22. So if you guys are working as a group on a big project, like a magazine might have 100 and some pages, but you're not doing all 100 and some pages. You might be doing the advertising section in the back. You might be doing feature articles or department articles. You might be doing the table of contents, and then you marry it all together in InDesign's book feature. You can literally start your page on whatever page you want, and then let's say Jesus has pages 22 through 45, and T has pages 46 through 49, and so on. Well, you guys can work independently of one another, but then bring them together in one InDesign document. It's fabulous. So you can have all sorts of different numbering sections. Okay, we're going to create 2 new pages here. So we can do this a couple of different ways. You can go to your Pages panel and click on the New Page icon twice. That's next to the little trash can in the Pages panel. And we're going to change this grid structure to be 3 columns instead of 2. Okay? Now what you want to do in this case is you want to hold down the Shift key and click on both of these pages, not just one. So in the Pages panel, make sure they're both grayed out like this. So hold down your Shift key and so they're both selected. And you can go to Layout and Margins and Columns. It's the second item down, and you will tell it to be 3 columns per page. And you will see, because Preview is on, that it just switched these to 3 columns. It should have left the original 2 pages alone at 2 columns. I'm going to hit OK, and let's see. Yep, my first 2 pages are 2 columns. My second 2 pages are 3 columns per page. So we're going to learn about different grid structures, and we're going to sketch using some various grid structures. So I create 2 new pages by clicking on the New Page icon twice. Then I go to Layout, Margins and Columns, and I specify however many columns that I want. So instead of 2, you would put 3. Okay. And oops, I only had 1 page selected here, so it's only doing it to one side. Ooh. So make sure you hold down your Shift key and you click on both of those pages so it'll apply to both of them. Layout, Margins, and Columns. Now, do a 2-column, a 3-column, a 4-column. This one's going to be 4 for me. Okay, so I have my first 2 pages are 2. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. My first 2 pages are 2-column. My second one 3. My third one is 4. Now I'm going to create 2 new pages. Hold down the Shift key while you select those 2 new pages. And I'm going to make this a 5-column grid by going to Layout, Margins, and Columns, and I'm going to make this 5. You can have multiple columns in the same document, clearly. Okay? Not normally do we do this, but I'm going to have us print out some thumbnail views so we can use them to sketch from. We have a question.
When I'm going to this third set, it won't give me the option to change the number of columns it's grayed out.
Do you, the question is, why is it grayed out? Let me see what you have. It's confused. But you did it on the previous one, right? Okay. Oh, I think because you have two mixed. So do edit, undo. Oh, wait, we got this one too. Okay, so let's trash that and let's just create a page here. And this one, because what's happening when you held on your shift key, it's confused because you got 3 columns on here and 2 columns on there. So when you go to layout, margin and columns, it goes, I don't know, and I'm not going to let you change it. Okay, so delete on the page. Okay, guys, I have a problem that came up, and I want to make sure that you know what this problem is because you may have this problem. Let's say I create 2 new pages, and I forget to hold down the shift key when I'm creating this grid structure. So I'm going to go, I only have 1 page selected right now. For me, it's page 31 or the last page. If I go to layout, margins, and columns, and let's say I make this a 6-column grid for giggles, and I hit OK, and I'm like, oh, darn it, I forgot his buddy over here. I forgot that left-hand page. I hold down the shift key, and I grab that second page in the Pages panel here. Now when I go to Layout, Margins, and Columns, it will not let me change the number of columns. However, I could type in the number, I believe, if I put my cursor in there. So it does not let you use the little up and down button until you put a number in there. So that's probably about as many as we want is 1, 2, 3, 4. We want 5 spreads. The first one is 2 columns each page. Second one 3. Third one is 4. The fourth one is 5, and the fifth one is 6.
Where's your cursor when you insert the new pages? Because it keeps inserting in the middle of my 3.
Okay, so let me delete this page real quick. Let me add a page, and let me mess this up real quick.
The middle add a page is adding in between 24 and 25.
Oh, okay. If you have let's say I have this page right here, page 26. I have it selected, and I add my Add Page button. It'll add it right next to page 26.
That's what I thought, but I didn't have anything selected.
Oh, okay. Nothing in the Pages panel? Might want to go to the very last page that you have, okay?
25 and did it right.
Okay. Shouldn't be hard, but sometimes it is if you get things a little screwed up. But you're okay. You're figuring it out. That's all that matters is you guys figure it out. Okay. So what you guys want to do is, oops, I have where's my 5 column? You want 2 columns, 3 columns, 4 columns, 5 columns, and then 6 columns. So that's what we're going to go with is up to 6 columns. Beyond 6, it's just too much for this size. How are we doing? We managing? You guys managing okay? Okay. Now, here's what we're going to do because we're going to actually print these, but you won't know whose is whose. So we're going to go to the master page and put our name in it very tiny. The master page says A Master at the top. Double click on that. And then zoom into your upper right-hand corner. Get your little type box going on and put your first name is just fine. And make that pretty small because we don't want this to involved in the layout. Okay, this is just so that when we print, we know whose belongs to whom. Okay, so this isn't going to be part of the design. But you'll notice that when you put it on the master page and then you double click on any of your pages, it will be on every single upper right-hand corner page. Nice. We'll delete that eventually. This is just so that when you guys print, you know who belongs to who. And please make sure, let me try to print first to see if the printer's actually working, because I don't want it to mess you guys over. But before we do, let's talk about why we're printing. So we're going to print these, and we're going to use these to sketch with, to experiment with the grid structure. But before we print, you know, I already have copy for you. I don't like guessing how much room my copy is going to take when I'm sketching. I don't like guessing at all. So I'm going to input my copy on every single one of these spreads. This is going to take a minute, but I'm willing. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my first 2 pages, which is my 2-page spread. Yes, we have a question.
When I put my name in there, it got rid of my columns.
When you put your name on it, it did what?
It got rid of my columns.
It will in the master page. If you just double click on one of your pages, you'll see the columns are back up. Get off your master page, yeah. Yeah, the master page right now has no columns set up on it. Okay, so we're on the first 2 pages of the document, and you guys will need to have downloaded from our week 4, week 5 it didn't copy over, but week 4 you have your text for project 5. Download that so we can now place this into our InDesign file. Okay, so make sure you get your text downloaded. We're not even going to open the Word document. We're going to go to File and Place, and we're going to get that document out of our Project 5 folder. And when I hit Open, I get the loaded cursor. Now, I definitely want to read this after I position it. So I'm going to I'm not going to click yet in the upper corner. Well, I will, I'll show you, but I click and it just puts it, oops, it's supposed to put it in the upper corner, but it didn't put all the text in there, so I'm going to hit Command Z. Now, if I hold down the Shift key before I click, you will see, let's see if I can zoom in and it will get any bigger. You will see that when I hold the Shift key down, there is a little arrow that pops in where that little newspaper icon was. And that means it's going to automatically flow, whoa, or close InDesign.
Yeah.
Oh, it closed my InDesign. I hadn't saved my document yet. I'm not happy. Wow, that was exciting. So how many of you guys had that? Did that close your document? Anybody else have it? No? You didn't do it? Okay, well maybe we don't hold down the Shift because it evidently doesn't like it, but normally we can and it will flow it into all the columns. Oh, I want to say bad words. I won't. So it looks like we have a glitch in the software. In the newest version of the software loaded on our computers here, we have a bit of a glitch. Oh, yay, remember what my document was like. Thank you, InDesign. So let me save this, and I will not hold down the Shift key when I do it because it is having a problem. We'll do it the old-fashioned way. So let me save this first. I'm going to call it Rebecca Project 5. Yeah, whatever. It's already reopened. And I'm going to put it in my Project 5 folder. Oh, look, it still is, my cursor is ready. Boy, that's nice. At least it didn't go kaput and nothing. I'm not going to hold down Shift, even though I should be able to. I'm not going to because it locks it up. Yes, Mustafa. When I'm doing this, only one needs to be highlighted. Yeah, you don't even have to have that highlight. As long as you're on a page, it doesn't matter. Yeah, thank you for asking. Okay, so I'm going to click. I'm not going to hold down Shift, but it should work. If I held down Shift, it would flow it into multiple columns, and it would make me work smarter, not harder, but I'm going to have to work harder because it doesn't like me today. And it should have popped it right in that column, but it didn't, so I have to do some doctoring up. There we go. You have to move it around and pop it in that first column, and basically what you want is you want this text box to conform to the pink line, which is the margin. This is not the whole story, however. There's the red plus sign. That means there's more text. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to go up to the next column and click. Boy, this thing is way off today. It is putting it not even in my columns, but it should. It's a little glitchy today. You want to get to... How did I get the pink line?
The plus sign.
Well, when you have, it should automatically be at the bottom of a copy block, assuming there's more text in there. And you grab it with the black arrow tool. Okay, if you're on the type tool and you try to get the pink or the red box, you can't grab it. You have to be on the black tool, black arrow tool, to click on the red box. That's confusing because you're working with type and you think you being on the type tool would be a good idea. But in this case, no, we have to have the selection tool, the black arrow tool. So we're going to click and fill our columns. Gosh, it is so weird how it's just totally off here. We're going to fill each of our columns with the text.
So we're doing this for every spread?
Every spread.
The next spread didn't do that. It like actually went into
Did it behave on the next spread? Okay. Before we go to the next spread, I'm going to actually go into this one. I'm going to break for sense, okay? Our headline is graphic arts, right? So you guys might want to copy this or cut it. Command X is cut. I just triple click, it'll get that whole graphic arts thing. And Command X is cut, that's copy and delete. And then I'm going to draw a text box. It can be out in the pasteboard or anywhere really. And I'm going to paste that text, which is Command V as in Victor, into that text box. I might increase this headline just a little bit, just because it is a headline. I'm not sure where exactly it's going or what I'm going to do with it, but I know it's going to have some size to it. We want to do what is called breaking for sense, or break for sense. We want to, gosh, I can't even double click on my corners and have it behave. Oh. Okay, well, I'll just squeeze it in. There we go. We want to break for sense. So if you look at the examples provided, I believe in the this week's materials, these two folks appear as if they may have broken their phrases and subheadlines. There's also subheadlines in here, by the way. There's printing in Germany. Graphic arts is the main headline. Printing in Germany is a subheadline. This person did like a sidebar. That's nice. Continuing a legacy is another subheadline, and then insight and innovation is yet another subheadline. So you'll see a couple of different ways how students have approached this. The second one, we have graphic arts as a headline. Printing in Germany, they kind of did this funky thing here with, they're playing with CMYK. They did a little study on Bradbury Thompson, who is a famous designer. This student was a photography student, and we were talking about art history at some point, and Bradbury Thompson came up, or he researched it or something. Bradbury Thompson was a graphic designer who worked for a printing company, and he created materials at that printing company to basically promote their printing company's abilities. When he was like, I'm going to bridge the gap between Bradbury Thompson, who was a designer for a print house, and Gutenberg, who owned his own print house. So he thought that was you know, our job as designers are to connect dots that most people wouldn't think to connect. So he connected two dots, the Gutenberg dot and the Bradbury Thompson dot, because both of them played a huge role in promoting printing and printed material. That was the connection of those two dots. So it absolutely made sense for him to design it this way when he told us about his inspiration and why he chose to do things the way he did them. Okay, so I wanted to let you know where this came from. It came from some good, solid research and some good thinking and connecting two dots that never should have been connected, but when they were connected, it worked out really well because the connection is there. So he did the CMYK kind of thing. But you'll see that printing in Germany, this text that's for that area is here. Insight and innovation has a little paragraph here, and the continuing legacies paragraph is here. They break these up, they chunk it out and break for sense. So before I even start putting pencil to paper, I start chunking things out. Okay, printing in Germany, I'm going to do 3 or 4 clicks on that. I'm going to make that a bigger font. And oh my gosh, why am I using Times New Roman? Ugh. Unless you have good reason, you shouldn't be using Times New Roman. So we might want to play with different typefaces here. So for now, I'm just going to use Garamond. You don't have to use Garamond, okay? I'm just using it. And maybe for printing in Germany, I'm going to use Helvetica. I don't know why yet because I haven't done my research. I'm just throwing some stuff in here. Just doing it just to give me some difference. Let's do ultra black condensed. There we go. Oh, not italic. No, not italic. Maybe I'll do graphic arts in ultra bold condense as well. Ooh, that looks more sexy already, doesn't it? Times New Roman, yuck. And then Insight and Innovation needs to be its own little deal. So I'll make it my ultra black condensed. And again, you guys can do anything you want here as long as it makes sense. I might even make it bigger. I might even make my body copy smaller. Oh my goodness, 12-point body copy, that is enormous. Let's see, we haven't had this quiz yet, I don't think, but let me tell you. For body copy, guys, usually the point size is between 9 and 11 for maximum readability, with the leading about 2 to 3 points bigger than that, depending on the X height of the font. So for this, if I made this 9 points over 11, oh my gosh, it opens up all sorts of space. Fabulous. Okay, so for my body copy, I'm going to make it 9 over 11. It could be 10 over 12. It could be 11 over 13. But for me, I'm going for 9 over 11 because I want some room to design. Wow, you see how it just opens all sorts of stuff up. I should have just done it all at one time. And this guy's going to be Helvetica. And by the way, when I am working with photographers and illustrators, if I'm not doing my photographs myself and I'm not illustrating things myself, I provide every photographer and every illustrator with a layout, type already in position, the size and the font I'm planning on using. That way, when they're doing their photos and they're doing their illustrations, they don't have to second guess how much room this type is going to take up. I do this. And how many of you guys are photography majors? How many of you guys like to take pictures for yourselves? Okay, what I do, here's a awesome trick I learned from a professional photographer that I used to pay $8,000 for their day rate. This guy is super uber professional, one of the best photographers in this town. His name is Kevin Foster of 2020. He's fabulous. Look him up. He would take my layout like this, and I would put things in position. So I'm just kind of cutting things up and moving them around and making sure they flow properly, and moving my text boxes, chunking things out. Okay, clicking on the little red plus sign when I don't have enough boxes, and he would print this. Here's the secret, guys, for you guys who want to take photographs or hire photographers, or you are a photographer. Ask your designer to do this for you, because if they don't, maybe you have the software. Because what you can do is you can print this out on a really tiny piece of acetate that fits over the LCD monitor on your camera. So when you're taking pictures, you know whether or not anything in that picture is going to really foul up the typography. Okay? I can take this tiny thing and print it out and put it on the back of my camera. And I used to have photographer, I learned that from Kevin Foster, and I was like, oh my God, you're a genius. When I go to the photo shoots and art director photo shoots. Made it so much easier. We never had any problems with really busy parts of photos behind text. And sometimes he'd get his X-Acto knife and he'd cut the stuff and move it around too and remake it. So you can chunk this stuff out and make it break for sense. Okay, so I just chunked out some type. Naturally, we want to kill all the hyphens, and we also want to kill widows and orphans at some point. I'm not too worried about the widows and orphans right now at the sketch stage, but we do want to always kill them. And always kill your hyphens. Let's turn that hyphenation off while we're in here. All right. I'm not explaining how to turn a hyphenation off because you guys already know how. All right, so I'm going to save this. We also need some page numbers on here too. Oh my gosh, there's so much to this. Guys, I love page numbers. I do fun things with them. I take the most mundane, boring stuff and I'm like, let's dress it up. Now these two guys, do they have page numbers? Oh, I missed their page numbers. Well, you guys need to know how to do page numbers. First, let's save what we're doing before we put our page numbers on there. Okay, even if you're chunking out your type, just save what you're doing and let's go ahead and do some page numbers. So save what you're doing. Well, you can go back to chunking out your type. To put page numbers on here, we're not going to draw a little text box on the page and put a number in there because we want to work smarter, not harder. We want it to automatically put them in there for us. So we're going to go to the Pages panel and we're going to double click on the master page. Unfortunately, I don't have any grids or guides here, but I'm not going to right now. Usually I do have at least a 2-column grid here. But you double click on the A master, and then I'm going to zoom into wherever I think my page number would be good. But guys, don't put your page numbers near the spine. That's when we're flipping through a book, that's where our hand is cupping the book and you can't see down in there. So being creative is one thing, and then just being kind of silly is another. So don't put your page numbers in the spine. It doesn't do any good. But sometimes I'll put them right here dead center of the page. Dead center on the side. I like them there. But I'm going to grab my type box, and I'm going to click and drag a little box for my type. Didn't show up, not sure why. Let's try that again. There we go. And I am going to let this put the page number stuff in there. Now here's how we do it. The cursor is blinking and it's ready to receive the automatic page number stuff. This is not easy to remember. We will go to Type, Insert Special Character, Markers, Current Page Number. Oh my gosh, we had to travel all the way to Egypt and back to get to that. Type, Insert Special Character, Markers, Current Page Number. Now what it puts in there, assuming my text box is big enough, it's an A. If your text box is not big enough, click on it, make it bigger. Typing an A in there is not the same thing. It puts an A in there because we're on the A master. If this master were called B, it'd put a B in there. Now I want to center this, Shift Command C, and I don't want this font, Minion Pro. Guys, if I see Minion Pro on your stuff, I'm going to be like, how lazy you are. How much you must not like typography. You love your fonts. I know you love your fonts. So I'm going to put a different font in here, not Minion Pro. Since I'm playing around with Helvetica today, I'll put Helvetica Extra Black Condensed. Why not? Or just Black Condensed. You can do whatever font you want. You can change this up later if you want to. You can even make this color if you want to, but right now, I'm just going to put it right there. I'm going to zoom out. Let me get this stuff kind of situated a little bit better. And I'm going to copy and paste this little A over to the other side in the same position. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key and the Shift key. Alt first, then Shift after you start dragging. And I am putting it in the same position on the other side. Okay? So there's one page number and the other page number over here. And if you want to make sure they're exactly the same distance from the edge of the page, you could always, I don't like to measure, I'm just kind of lazy. So I grab the rectangle tool, I draw a little rectangle from the edge of the page to the edge of the text box, I cut it, I go over to the other side, and I paste it. I put it in position here. I'm like, oh, I was just a wee bit off. So I am going to hold down the Shift key because you don't want it moving up and down, and I put him in position. That's how you get it exactly in the same position on the horizontal. Okay? The vertical, it's already there, or vice versa. Now I'm going to save this. And now when I go to my pages panel and I click on page 22 or 23 or 26 or 27 or whatever, that page number is automatically sitting there. Now, if you have like, if you decide your pages are supposed to be like 566 is the page number you start on, your text box, if it's too small, it'll show a little red plus sign. You'll have to make the text box bigger on the master page. So I just shared with you automatic page numbering in InDesign, and you have to do that on the master page. Just make sure you double click on one of your regular pages to continue doing other design. Okay, I'm saving this and I'm ready to move on to my next page. So this is my 2-column grid. Everything, it doesn't care, I don't care about this headline conforming to the 2-column grid. It can break the grid, but every text box that's body copy conforms to the 2-column grid. Now I'm ready to move on to my 3-column grid. I'm going to go to File, Place, and I'm going to place that text again. Now, according to Malia, it didn't lock up on her when she placed it this time, so I'm going to try it again. I'm going to hold down the Shift key.
I didn't even use the shift key.
Oh, it just did it?
I mean,
Oh, well, lucky
I had to
you.
do it, but it wasn't off.
Okay, mine is just giving me fits today. Ugh. Mine won't even give me a loaded text box. Ugh. Let's try that again. File, Place, which is Command D. I usually use Command D. Open it. Oh, there we go. Now, I'll click, but it doesn't go to the next column. So if I hold down Shift and click, yay, it did it without locking up. Oh. See, I Shift click and it automatically pours it right into more columns. That's nice. Now, I'm telling you, I don't want to work so hard, guys. So I can either do it this way and make my headlines and my subheadlines again and change my type, but that's taking a lot of time. I'm going to delete those. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to steal. I'm going to rob Peter to pay Paul. Whoa, what happened up there? Ooh, there's something that went crazy up there. There we go. I'm going to steal this off of this page, and I'm going to paste it down below on this page. I can just go paste in place, and it'll automatically stick it there. But I want to get this stuff to conform to the 3-column grid, so I am going to have to build my separate columns, get them all linking together. This is a pain in the neck, by the way, because you have all this text reflow. Lots of text reflow. And we're trying to get it to conform to a 3-column grid this time, instead of 2-column. And it changes the dynamics of the layout quite a bit. Wow, I opened up a lot of white space here. Maybe I stick that over there. Once you get your 3-column grid built, we will copy and paste this in place. Copy it, click on the next page, and go to Edit, Paste, and Place, and we will make this conform to the 4-column grid. Now, I will warn you, the 4-column grid is a little narrow, so we might actually break the grid. If we're justifying text, especially, this could be problematic. So we might do a combination of running across 3 columns. Get rid of this guy. 3 out of the 4 columns here. And then below, I might turn my 4-column grid into a 2-column grid down here. So my grid is flexible. The more columns you have, the more flexibility you have, actually. It's very nice. Up here, I'm going to do a 2-column. Down here, maybe I run this across 3 columns again. So even though it's a 4-column grid, I'm treating it in some cases like a 2-column grid, and then in other areas I am only using 3 of those 4 columns. But it's all aligning to the grid. In fact, I wonder if I could chunk this out up there, get rid of this one, and pull this down. Now what you're learning too when you're doing this, it's a little frustrating because you're learning about how reflow can really mess with you. And I make it look easy because I've been doing this for a number of years. But you guys are going, how does she work so quickly? I would hope I could work quickly at this point in my life, but it takes you guys a little bit longer. I want to move that over there. So each one of these is going to look distinctively different. Oh, and while I'm at it, let's have some fun with this headline. I'll move these over. I'm going to take this headline and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And then I'm going to make it big. Bleep. I'm like, oh, now we're talking. Now we're having some fun. Let's make that happen. So you guys can get funky with the headlines and start getting bigger with them if you want. You don't have to copy and paste the same headline the same way every time. In fact, if I hit the W key, it'll show me how much I'm pushing it. Probably need to adjust the word spacing between these two, tighten it up a little bit. I might even decide to small caps this a little bit. If that's the case, then we're going to have to deal with making it bigger. So you can definitely, on these, before you start sketching, you can play around with headlines. I definitely would encourage that. And what I'm doing to move this text here, I'm moving the graphic and the RTS. I'm moving those up quite a bit. I'm doing a baseline shift, which is this big A and the little a. I did a baseline shift and move that up. I'm going to do the same thing to this RTS. I know that was 26 on the other guy. And I might add some lines here just to be artsy-fartsy about it all and give myself some lines. Ooh, now I'm having some fun. You can design. It doesn't have to be boring. I should take the space right out between graphic and arts because it's just driving me nuts. Add a little bit back. Not too much. So this is where you get to have some fun. Oh, Keith is leaving. Oh, you're going to miss the sketching part and the printing part.
It's gonna set you pay attention.
All right, and I got a little bit of recording still. Ooh, but isn't that nice? It's starting to get fun. I'm breaking the grid a little bit, but and sometimes I have to break the grid a lot. Like this, in this case, I'm like, this should probably have been on my 6-column grid because now I've got this column that's kind of empty. Which, you know, could be good. Maybe I make it look like the Gutenberg Bible. Oh, wouldn't that be awesome if I counted 42 lines and made it look really awesome like the Gutenberg Bible? I think this should go up in here. Okay. So you guys can get kind of funky with it. It's all right. May have to delete that page number out there eventually. So we build it, and we build it, and we build it. Now, after I'm done building it, I'll print it. So I'm going to keep building, and then I'll print it, and then you guys can, I'll give you guys some time to work on it, and then we'll get to the next phase, which is the sketching phase. So I'm just going to keep building mine for now, so I can get to the printing. Steal that headline because it's pretty fun. You can switch up fonts if you want. Part may seem boring, but actually it's kind of fun because you get a lot of variation. Again, the more columns you have, the more variety you have. The fewer columns, the more restricted things are. So if you tend to like things more restricted, you might appreciate fewer columns. But if you tend to like more freedom, you would probably appreciate having more columns. And we'll definitely want to read the text so we can figure out what images should go with what areas, and that's part of that sketching process as well, is figuring out what images go where and why. And make sure you guys save often too while you're doing this, so you don't lose all the great work that you've been working on. So save often. When I supply with illustrators and photographers, I will supply them a variety of layouts too, and say, you can work with any number of these. My page count's already here, the type size is already determined, so you know what you're working around, and they're really happy. You could really make your outsourced folks real happy by supplying them stuff like this, because it makes their jobs go a lot more smoothly. So it's definitely worth taking the time and working this out. Otherwise, you end up having to do a lot of editing and squeezing stuff in. It doesn't look like it's been done with purpose. So you have to really keep that in mind when you're dealing with other people. That the more you supply with, the more options you supply for them, the better off they are as well. If you supply no options, you're going to probably not going to be too happy with what you get. Also keep in mind that exercise we did, or that project we did where you guys played around with paragraphs where one starts and the other one begins, which does take some time to do, but think about how you can get creative with paragraphs too. Okay, once you have them all pulled together, and take your time on this, guys, and I'm going to give you some time, but I want to walk through the printing process real quick. But I have completely different looking layouts, and they all have a different foundational column structure, very different from one another. But I'm going to be sketching using these, and I'm going to do it on this overhead projector, but I'm going to need to print these out so I can use them to sketch with. And I don't want them really, really big because I don't have all day to sketch. These are we call these thumbnails. They're pretty quick. So I don't want to sit there and labor over them too much, but I do also want to make sure they communicate visually well. So I'm going to print these in small format. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to my print dialog box. And I definitely want to click on spreads because you want the 2 pages to be together. So spreads should be clicked on. Then you do want, in this case, non-printable objects, blank pages, and visible guides and baseline grids. This is going to print those pink lines. You don't want that on your finished one, so we got to remember to turn this off later. But when we're sketching, we want to know where the grid lines are. It's really nice that you can turn those on. Now under the setup, we can use letter, that's fine. And where it says page position, we're not going to worry about that right now because we're going to click on thumbnails, and page positioning grays out when you click on thumbnails. It's going to print these in miniature form, either two spreads on a page, or you could do 4 spreads on a page. Usually for most folks, they like it 1 by 2. It's big enough that you can actually sketch a little bit and put some detail in. If you're trying to thumbnail more quickly, the 2 by 2 works pretty well. But I found through my history that students tend to prefer the 1 by 2 more than the 2 by 2. So I'm going to do 1 by 2. Then on marks and bleeds, I don't typically worry about that at all right now. But I do need to make sure that this charges me for black and white. So let me go to the printer button down in near the lower left-hand corner, excuse me. I'm going to hit OK here. And to make sure that this does not charge me for color, I'm going to click on Layout and go to Xerox Features. And then where it says Paper Output, I click on that. I go down to Color Options, and I make it black and white. Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to get charged for color. So I hit Print. I'm going to hit Print again, and then I'm going to save this. And it'll hopefully print today. If not, I'll have to turn off the printer, unplug it, plug it back in, and reboot it because the motherboard is wicked. But it sounds like it's thinking about printing. That doesn't mean it always does print. But what we'll see is we'll see a two-page grid. I'm going to turn the overhead on to the 1962 Elmo device here, which will. I don't think Camtasia will record this, but we'll see. I doubt it. I don't think it's set up for that. And what I have here are miniature versions of these page layouts that, there they are. And I know who this belongs to because, let me zoom in a little bit. It's kind of not very focused. Autofocus that and zoom. Let's see. Near. Okay. There we go. Oh my. It's a little too zoomed. But here are little miniatures of my page layout. It's so cute. They're little miniatures. And I can use these to sketch with. They're awesome. Oh, it did print front to back, but that's not a big deal because I'm going to use tracing paper over these anyway. If you don't want them to print front to back, turn that off, but in this case, it's not that big of a deal. Gosh, already I'm more excited about that last spread than I am about the first spread. You know, the more columns I have, the more I get into it, the more variety and stuff I create. So I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to catch up to this. And then I'll show you how to deal with the sketching part of it after I run around and assist folks who might be lost. So let me stop the recording.